This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Thank you for downloading another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You're listening to Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
Biting more lines, stealing more time. That's what you do. What's going on, buddy?
I'm looking forward to this weekend. I know you and Vito are going to go out to the Motor City Comic-Con. You're going to go out and walk the Novi Expo Center, and you're going to do some good stuff, and I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. Who accepts your invitation to talk to them and to see the videos, the pictures? It'll be a fun time.
Here's the thing. Sting's supposed to be there, and I was online last night looking over a couple different things, and he's charging an outrageous amount for a lot of different stuff. But out of everybody who's going to be there, he'd probably be the one guy I want to talk to the most, just because I've got questions that need to be answered, especially in the realm of wrestling. I mean, I was a huge WCW fan back in the day when the whole NWO takeover took place, and Sting was part of that entire anthology. Just everything that took place, he was part of it, from the Bash at the Beach where Hogan turned on WCW and sided with NWO, and then he kind of disappeared and kind of faded into the shadows. And then he was Dark Sting, where he was just up in the rafters all the time, and then he had his baseball bat. I really want to know what happened to Sting, because there was a stretch there where Sting wasn't around. Nobody knew where the hell Sting was and what was going on. I don't know if he had his own demons he was facing at that time, or if he was dealing with an injury, or if he just needed some time away from the business. I really want to know what happened to Sting during that time period, during that little stretch of time before he came back at Starrcade. I believe it was 1997. I remember getting that with my cousin Joey, and we sat down and we watched that. And just super hyped because Sting ended up winning the World Championship from Hollywood Hogan. I have questions for Stinger, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get those answered, because I'm not sure if he's going to give us the time or the day. He's only there one day. He's only there on Saturday.
So I'm curious as to the nature of these Comic-Cons. Is there anybody that doesn't usually show up that you'd be interested to go up and talk to, or that maybe you wish would make the rounds? And do you think that, as a celebrity, or if you're a comic book hero or a writer, that you should go out and do these things and charge? Like, I think Sting was charging neighborhood $75 plus for just a photo.
For a photo op, yeah.
And so a lot of athletes do it. They go to these signings. A lot of these athletes will work with some of the places and get some money up front to show up and do signings. What's your whole take on it? Do you think these celebrities need to go out there and that's a way to extend your brand, or that's how you get your name out there? But it just seems like you're just charging your fans a boatload of money. And I was always of the opinion that, look, if it was me, and I was really a guy that looks towards helping out your fans, you just charge like $150 and you go wait in line. You don't pay anything to get an autograph, because you also have to pay money to get into the joint, and you can't. You could just go and walk around, but each individual, there's going to be over a couple hundred people there. Each person that you want to go and talk to and maybe have a signing with, you got to pay. And that can get up there if you want to go see 3 or 4 different kind of people.
It's a total cash grab. You got to realize these are celebrities who aren't A-listers anymore. Some of them aren't even B or C listers. So it's a total cash grab for these guys. And you're basically towards the end of your career and you're trying to make $1. I think it's cool that a lot of these people go and they do these things just to interact with the fan base. I think that's neat. I don't necessarily think it's cool that they do charge as much as they're charging. I was really blown away by how much they were charging. This is probably the second or third time I've gone to Comic-Con.
Did you ever get anyone's autograph?
Yeah, but it was one of those ones where it was free. I mean, I went one time when Virgil was there, and there was nobody. It's funny because there was nobody in Virgil's line, and Virgil was basically giving away autographs to people, just like, "Hey, show up and take this for me." You know what I'm saying? I don't know, man. Honestly, it's just a cash grab for these guys. They're trying to make $1 off their name or what's left of their name. So I get it. I was really blown away to see that Sting was doing something like this. Like I said, it's normally saved for Virgil. Virgil's always doing these. He's in all of these, everywhere you go, whether it be at San Diego, whether it be at Chicago, whether it be in Detroit, New York, wherever. He's always part of it. It's like they can't shake him. He makes the circuit. There's sometimes you'll see chicks who pose for Playboy will be there, like May 1997's Playmate of the Year or whatever. She'll be there, and just different stuff. Different people will be there. It's always interesting. It's always a good time. What I find to be the most fun is it's basically a giant collection of nerds. I'm a total nerd. So I love it. You know what I'm saying? There's comic books, there's anime, there's just everything that I like to sit there and I like to just veg out with. I can just get my hands on. I can look through things. I bought some of my more favorite Spider-Man comic books at one of the Comic Cons I went to. So it's a good time, man. It's a real good time.
Yeah, Comic-Cons are usually not my thing. The ones that I enjoy, obviously, at these showcases are the sporting ones. And I know I went to one where you were the intern at 97 won the ticket, and they had all the sporting things. And I got an autograph from Chris Chelios and got to walk around and see the different booths and exhibits. If you're out there in Vegas, the Expo Center there is just world-renowned. From jewelry shows to tech shows to broadcasting shows. If you ever get a chance to go out to Las Vegas for a show, oh my gosh, it's great. You can spend the time during the day at the Expo Center, and then at nighttime you can indulge in all the fun in Vegas. But, Novi does a great job, and it's a great facility. It's right there off of the highway. You can get there pretty quickly, and it'll be a fun weekend. You can check out Adam's and Vito's coverage on our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com, and definitely via our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. We'll definitely have a lot of stuff going on regarding Motor City Comic Con this year. Definitely check it out this weekend. It'll be fun.
If I can get After Effects to work with me and cooperate with me, mind you, I've never used After Effects. I have the program on my computer. Hopefully we can put together a pretty sweet movie or something of what we've done. Otherwise,
your first documentary, right. DSP documentary.
Right, that's it. Right
DSP
there.
Doc 1, Motor City Comic Con. That'd be awesome. Just kind of, definitely we got to see you getting rejected by PR. Be like, no, he's not taking interviews. All of a sudden you walk away and Brad Galley shows up with the microphone, talks right up to him.
Right.
And you're like, you just said no. We met real journalists, not people with flags that say Detroit Sports Podcast. And you're like, oh, man. All right, fine. That'll be motivation. That'll be so funny to get Hollywooded like that. That'd be
good
hilarious.
Old Brad Galley, always getting the cut in line.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, well, you just said no interviews. We met no interviews from people like you. So sorry, Brad's different.
Right.
He planned this from 6 months ago.
Brad's an all-star.
All right. Speaking of all-stars, let's talk about, before we get to the Detroit Tigers, let's talk about the news that was made earlier on Wednesday. The Detroit Lions may have been in the market for a veteran running back. News came down that LeGarrette Blount signed with the Eagles for 1 year, $2 million. And so you and I were talking, and when we heard the news, the first thing that we thought was, is he going to be a fit there? And are the Lions going to be regretful of the fact that they spoke with LeGarrette Blount but didn't offer him a deal or didn't sign nothing?
Well, his contract's for $2.8 million, or up to $2.8 million. So, there's a lot of incentives included in that contract. I think based on his price tag, they might regret not have signing him because he'd be a nice thumper. He'd be that nice power back that you have. That being said, I don't necessarily know if he would actually fit with the scheme that they're trying to run. You have to remember, they run a lot of shotgun. They run a lot of just sweeps and options, and they like to throw the ball out of the backfield. So that being said, LeGarrette Blount doesn't catch the ball well out of the backfield. He likes to run from under center. So I don't necessarily know if it would have been a great fit. It might have been one of those signings where we were sitting there scratching our head and we're like, wow, this was all done based upon name, and you really weren't seeing the dividends. Now, last year, LeGarrette Blount had 18 touchdowns, led the league in TDs. That being said, he had his career low in yards per carry. So he's on the other side of 30. He's on the downside at this point. I just don't know if it would have been worth the risk. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, if Amir Abdullah comes back and he's healthy, which he's never healthy, and he has trouble holding onto the ball, so I don't necessarily buy that. But if he is, Amir Abdullah should be a big factor in this Lions season. Also, you've got Dwayne Washington, who I think we were both pretty impressed with last season. I like Zach Zenner. I think you like Zach Zenner. I think there's better options out there than Zach Zenner, especially in this past draft that we had. But I like what Zach Zenner brings to the table. He runs hard. He doesn't shy away from contact. He can usually get hit and keep on moving. He's always got one or two moves left in the tank, which is always outstanding. Theo Riddick is what Theo Riddick is. The guy's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's probably your change of pace back, your third down back. It just, you don't really have a guy on this roster who really strikes fear in you that can run between the tackles. And that's what LeGarrette Blount would have gave you. I just don't know if he would have meshed well with the offensive setup, especially with what they've got installed here with Jim Bob Cooter now going into almost his third season. Was it like season 2.5? Because remember, he came in halfway through the year 2 years ago. So it just, I don't know if they're going to really regret it. I think for the value that you could have got from him, because remember, if he could sit there and he can score you 12 touchdowns, and he's going to be able to get you, when it's 3rd and 1 and he's able to get you 2 yards, I mean, at $2.8 million, he's totally worth it. You know what I'm saying? So I think for the value, they might regret it, but I don't know if the fit would have been there.
See, I'm thinking that Bob Quinn maybe missed a chance to get a veteran cheap that you can plug in and do some things, because you got to remember, this is an offense that's going to be predicated mostly on Matthew Stafford zinging the ball all over the place. But when we talked to Dan Miller at the start of the 2016 year, I remember vividly one of the questions I asked him was, how close can the Lions achieve balance between the run game and the passing game? And he said, obviously, Dan responded very well, and he said, look, it's going to be a passing team, but you have to run the football. And I just don't think that the Lions, in the better part of the last 3 years, have run the ball at the proper clip in order to help Matthew Stafford out. And even if you just wanted to sign LeGarrette Blount to be the red zone guy, the guy that when the Lions are at the 5-yard line, to just give him the ball and see what he can do, you have revamped that offensive line. But the narrative and the notion that Bob Quinn and Jim Caldwell came out and told people, look, Amir Abdullah has done great, check the numbers. Fine, but like we all say, what's the best ability? Availability. Is Amir Abdullah going to get on the field? Is he going to be, available week in, week out to take the ball 15 to 20 times and do some things? And so maybe LeGarrette Blount isn't anymore at his age, but I felt like if you could have reached a deal, you probably would have helped the Detroit Lions running game, and it would have helped Matthew Stafford. I think it would have been a great addition by every account. I think there were not going to be too many negatives by signing LeGarrette Blount, and I do think that he's going to have a productive year, maybe even better than the likes of a Dwayne Washington or a Zenner, and maybe better than 2 or 3 of the guys that the Lions are going to parade out there. So I feel like it's a missed opportunity, and when I saw it, I'm like, oh man, I was kind of hoping that Blount was going to be on the Detroit Lions. It seemed like a fit.
Especially when you have a team that last season was ranked 30th in the league in rushing yards. I mean, they only ran 81.9 yards. That's less than half of what the number 1 team did, and that was Buffalo, who ran the ball an astounding 164 yards per game. So you're right. He would have been a piece that could have complemented that offense if they could have devised a scheme for him. It's just, again, were they going to be able to devise a scheme for him? Was he going to be a good fit? And, apparently, and this goes back to our conversation about our draft talk, Bob Quinn really likes the running backs here. He really likes the retooled offensive line, and he thinks that's going to give them a lot of production going forward. It remains to be seen. Again, we're going to have to wait until the 2017 season gets underway here to really sit there and be able to say for certain whether or not that's correct or not. But look, everything hinges on whether Amir Abdullah can stay healthy. Can he stay healthy, and can he hold on to the football? If he stays healthy and he can hold on to the football, it looks as though he might be a game changer for this offense. Might be a guy who can maybe help, like you said, balance out the running and the pass game. He just doesn't strike me as a between the tackles kind of guy. So when it is 3rd and 1, I still feel like you're passing the ball on that down, and that's an issue. This is something that this team hasn't been able to do for years now. For years, they have not been able to sit there and pick up easy first downs on 3rd and 1s, or when it's 3rd and goal, they're not able to run the ball into the end zone. They've got to sit there and they've got to pass the ball. And what happens when you go to pass the ball? You got the opportunity for either a turnover, Eric Ebron dropping the ball, or Eric Ebron getting away from a guy and getting the touchdown, and then it being flagged for interference, because we haven't seen that before. And I'm not just here to pick on Eric Ebron in this case. All the receivers drop balls, and a lot of times, depending on what's going on with that pass rush that they're facing, Matt Stafford might have to throw it away, or you might get sacked. And now instead of it being 3rd and 1, now it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, and you got a bigger hole that you're now stuck in. And the 2nd and 1, now you're 3rd and 7, I should say.
In the end, do you think that LeGarrette Blount's going to have a very productive 2017 season, maybe better than a couple of the Lions that are already on the roster?
That's a good question. That's a real good question. Here's the thing. If you remember when LeGarrette Blount played for Pittsburgh, when him and Le'Veon Bell got popped for smoking pot and all that, and then he ended up weaseling his way out of Pittsburgh after being suspended.
Do you agree that you've smoked pot?
That's right. I think he did. He didn't have a real good season while he was there in Pittsburgh. He went back to New England and basically resurrected that part of his year and ended up resurrecting, I guess, his career because it looked like he was on the outs, like he was donezo. So I don't know if he's going to have as productive of a season as he's had in his time in New England. I think he will be productive. I think you will see him probably be a better back than either the second or the third running back on the depth chart for the Lions. But I don't know if he would be as good as whoever the starter is going to be, if it's going to be Amir Abdullah or if somebody's going to take Amir Abdullah's place.
Well, early in the tenure, we all felt that Bob Quinn has done a great job. But this week, based upon him passing on LeGarrette Blount, suck. See, I think that LeGarrette Blount's going to have a monster year, and especially in that Eagles offense, they got an opportunity to do some things, and I'm not sure. The Lions, do they play the Eagles again this year? I don't think so. I don't recall that name on the schedule, but I'm hoping.
I'll pull the schedule up for you.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's not going to come back to haunt the Detroit Lions because I do know that the Lions are going to play Cincinnati, and everyone's going to be looking at, is Joe Mixon going to be able to come out there and score 3 or 4 touchdowns on the Lions defense? So.
Oh, dude, I'm expecting Joe Mixon to treat the Detroit Lions like they're a single white girl. Just gonna just run rampant on them.
Yeah,
was that tasteless? Whatever.
Now, before we get to
no, they don't play the Eagles. But here, real quick, before we transition, don't the Eagles throw the ball a lot out of the backfield as well? Don't they like to sit there and utilize the screen pass and the dump offs to the running back? It'll be interesting to see how this works out for him.
Now, later on in this podcast, we're going to talk about the Detroit Tigers and my experience watching the game on Tuesday because it was wild. And it was one of those things where it was
just
an enjoyable game.
Just a roller coaster of emotions, man.
What a game. And we got to talk about the issues with the Tigers. We're going to play a round of Jock Jams and finish off the podcast with the DocNJock Wrestling Report. But Adam, being that we're now in the media and that we have opportunities to gain some information, I don't know if you took advantage of some of the information that I passed along to you regarding, entertainment type stuff and things like that. But I've been absorbing it greatly, looking at link upon link upon link. I'm like, wow, there's so much great information that we can talk about. And the one that hit me this week, it just stared me right in the face. And I'm curious as to why. Many people that do watch adult entertainment, they have their niches, right? Whether they like young, 18-year-old, veteran, MILFs. So there's popular searches, right? Okay,
yes.
and some that you would expect.
Some people like the foot stuff.
Yeah, foot, exactly.
Not cool with that.
Yeah, we're not going to get into all that here, but obviously one of the more popular search items is...
I can't believe we're talking about this.
No, it's crazy because I don't understand. I can't understand because it's really kind of gross.
Well, who's your favorite?
My favorite adult entertainer?
Yeah.
Oh, man,
I know you've got like 4.
I prefer blondes, but Olivia Austin's been in my range the last couple weeks.
Oh, really?
Olivia Austin's cute. If you Google her.
I'll have to Google her. Yep. I have not checked her out.
Olivia Austin. So, MILF obviously is a super popular one, but there's a search item that has gained traction and has increased in terms of the number of people searching for it in the last year. 20% more people have searched this than in years past. Care to venture a guess as to what kind of adult entertainment people are getting into?
This is something that usually me and my hockey buddies talk about because we just find it to be weird. Brother-sister porn.
That's fake, bro. That's not real.
Yeah, but it's still weird.
Yeah.
Or mom-daughter, mom-son porn.
Yeah.
One of those?
Yeah. No, but that is very weird. When you see that title, you're like, oh, come on. We all know it's fake. No, pregnancy porn.
Oh, that stuff is so gross. So gross. I've got a story of a buddy of mine, and you'll be
sorry, buddy.
You'll be hearing from him very shortly. Because we might be working on, we've got something in the works, let's just say.
Oh, okay.
So my buddy Jay, he loves to bang pregnant chicks.
No, come on.
It's so gross.
Oh.
It's so gross.
In real life?
Yeah, because he can just keep dumping in them. It's no big deal.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's so gross.
Oh, come on, Adam.
I swear to God. He was like, dude, there's something about them. They got to glow. No. Ugh. It's so gross, dude. He likes banging pregnant chicks.
Really?
That's not something I've ever done or thought about. But I don't understand why you think
it's a favor to his.
I don't understand
among other things.
Yeah, I don't understand why people would search that on the internet in terms of all the great adult content that if you want to go and search it out, pregnancy porn's on the rise. People want to watch that on film as well. I just think that whole concept is not
so
proper.
Weird.
It is.
You know, the kid's going to come out. It's going to have basically a yachty dot in the middle of its forehead from getting poked by the schwanz of whoever's in there. I mean, that's not a normal cock. That's a porn star cock. You know what I'm saying? Those things are coming in at 8 to 12 inches.
So people, obviously are getting very weird, and your boy is very weird. We should have him on here before you guys maybe start your project to have this conversation like, what?
Well, we'll bring him in and have him introduce him.
Introduce him in the way that we do and be like, what? How do you go about, like, you see, or don't you ask, like, the potential for baby mama drama or baby daddy drama is, like, through the roof?
Dude, in and out, I guess. I don't get it, but yeah.
Or maybe there's women that are like, look, I have needs, and we'll just take it for what it is.
Here, he's got a girlfriend now, and she's not pregnant. But there was a time there where he was running through like 2-3 a week, man. It was not good.
2-3 pregnant women a week?
Yes. Here's one thing you'll learn about Jay. Jay has no shame. Jay does not care. He'll just tell you exactly how it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if there's any good segue into the Tigers, but
I don't know how we segued from that.
I encourage you to check out the links that I've been sending you. They're awesome. It's good stuff. I was like, what? Pregnancy porn on the rise.
I do normally check out the hacked accounts of the WWE divas. Those are usually fun.
Oh, yeah.
Charlotte's boobs do not look good.
My goodness. Yeah, I still cannot believe that in 2017, we're still getting celebrity hacks. I mean, you got to lock that up. You got to figure out a way to make sure that nobody gets access.
How are you sending these things out? Are you just leaving your phone open? What's going on? Like, here's the thing. The whole thing with the page, I get it, right? There seems to be a lot of finger pointing at the ex-boyfriend, and they needed to burn the NXT Women's Championship after all of that. But I don't understand. Like, Charlotte, how?
How's this possible?
What's going on? I mean, is this your Snapchat account, and somehow your Snapchat, the history in your Snapchat account got caught? Because you're not supposed to have a history. I mean, I know there is one, but you're not supposed to have one. I don't get it, man. I just don't understand.
All right, so Tuesday night was a great night to watch baseball. If you had an opportunity to go out, the Tigers were on a long West Coast trip. They went 4-5. They come back, and all the fans are excited. JD Martinez is back in the lineup. He's been mashing the baseball. People are excited. Okay, the Tigers are not totally out of it. They came into the game on Tuesday at 500 with 18 wins and 18 losses. The team that they entertained, the Baltimore Orioles, they're unbelievable. They're playing a good brand of baseball. So the game on Tuesday was a fun one if you had the nerve to stay and watch about a 5-hour baseball game. But for me,
closer to 5.5.
It was tough, man. It ended around 12:30. And
there was a point there where I was laying in bed, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I was laying in bed, and the wife's like, "Can you just shut that off?" Like, she was done. She was ready to go to bed. And mind you, I told you I've been dealing with a little bit of a cold here, so I needed to go to sleep as well. And she's like, "You mind shutting that off?" And I was like, "I kind of do, because I really want to stay up and watch this, but you're right." So I ended up having to shut the game off sometime around like 11 o'clock, man. There would have been no way I could have stayed up for another hour and a half.
Yeah, it was tough. So you get through the first couple innings, okay, Boyd does okay, and then you look at the inning in which he imploded, gives up 7 runs, and he totally lost control, wasn't able to find the plate, and you're like, oh, maybe I can tune out. But then the Tigers start inching back. JD Martinez hits a home run, Victor Martinez doing damage, and then you go, okay, this is a ball game. Now you have an opportunity for JD Martinez to come up again with the bases loaded, and people are like, ooh, there's a buzz. There's a situation. Can JD Martinez come up here and do some damage? And he does it. He delivers. He delivers a grand slam, sends Comerica Park into a tizzy, and then a perfect scenario. You have your bullpen kind of doing the job, and Brad Ausmus, again, what did I say in weeks past? Dude can't catch a break. Any decision that he makes with any resemblance of going outside the box just doesn't seem like it's going to work. He goes boom. He sees Alex Wilson out there, and he's got a guy, and he sees a matchup. Ausmus sees a matchup that he likes, and he's like, okay, I'm bringing in Justin Wilson for a 4-out save opportunity. And then Justin Wilson comes out, and he's mowing people down. It only took 3 pitches to get out of the 8th inning. He comes back for the 9th, and you're like, dude, I think we got this. The narrative was starting to build. The legend of Justin Wilson was growing.
We got our closer.
We got our guy. And boom. He gets 2 outs in the 9th. Mark Trumbo hits a 97-mile-an-hour fastball elevated out of Comerica Park. And it was just the feeling that I had when that happened was we just can't catch a break. Ausmus can't catch a break. Justin Wilson blows his first save as the closer. So then that's fine. Then you go, okay, what's the likelihood that the Tigers bullpen is going to hold them inning after inning? I kind of had felt like Trumbo ruined the night and that it was going to be a loss. Then Baltimore comes out and gets some runs, and you go, okay, it's probably going to be done. Gibby's, championing the pom-poms, like, no, we're going to get the runs back. We're going to do it.
Does Gibby have a rally hat on inside the booth, you think?
He was trying his absolute best to keep everyone into it, but the Tigers came back. They came back, and they came back again in extra innings, and then you go, oh, no. Who did Brad Ausmus go to start off the 13th inning? K-Rod. And you're like, dude, this is going to blow up in your face. This is terrible. Everyone knew it. Nobody probably had the guts to say it, but, I tweeted it out. If you were following, I was like, oh, man. I put a bunch of M's like, I don't know if my attitude could have been, if I maybe should have sent out a pic of my face because I was just like, oh, no, this is horrible. And you could see, it's so disheartening to see a guy with that huge windup, and then he throws the ball, it's 89. All that work for a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and then Fox Sports Detroit did something that I think was a disservice to the Tigers, but it was cool. Chris Davis's home run was majestic. It was like a batting practice golf shot, moonshot out of Comerica Park. So when he hit it, the bat was like, crack, and you're like, oh, here we go. And then they showed another replay from a lower level, and it literally looked like K-Rod threw him a batting practice ball, and it didn't, the Tigers wasted a grand performance by JD Martinez, and they didn't win the opening game versus Baltimore. It was a tough watch in that a lot of things that people complain about with the Tigers were highlighted. You got guys that the Tigers are continuing to parade out there that, in essence, the word you would use to describe them is useless. Anytime you put out K-Rod, it's pretty much useless. You got to sit him down. You didn't see Anibal Sanchez. Tyler Collins is being put out there on an over streak, well over now 30 at-bats, where he hasn't hit the baseball. So he's on an over streak, and you go, okay, how is Tyler Collins? How is Nick Castellanos, who was 0 for 5? How is K-Rod helping this team? And then you say to yourself, you know what? Brad Ausmus, in any situation now, is a guy that I feel sorry for. I watch the games, and I go, dude has no real options. He doesn't have a situation where he can go, boom, yeah, I want to go out there and be a hero, bring in Justin Wilson in the 8th inning and have him go do the job. He couldn't do the job, and his hands are tied. He has no options when it's time to go to the bullpen. You thought that you could count on Blaine Hardy. He gave up some runs, and the joke of the night was, damn, whose bullpen's worse, Baltimore's or ours? It became a joke. That's what it was watching that game, and it was just indicative of watching the Tigers in that there are not enough good players to help carry this team over the hump. It's a 500 team, and so it just kind of hits you in the face game in, game out. When you watch, you go, it is what it is. It's pretty bad.
Well, let's look at some of the positives that came out of specifically that game, okay? You have a team that got behind very early. They sat there. They didn't give up. They fought. They clawed. They came back, and they were actually winning that game. JD Martinez looks like he's going to be a very special player, going to be very special, whether it's with the Tigers next season or with somebody else. And it's probably going to be somebody else because the Tigers have laced people like Anibal Sanchez with ridiculous contracts. Jordan Zimmerman, who's got a contract that he doesn't deserve, and we can sit there, we can debate Jordan Zimmerman right now because he's actually killing the starting rotation. You've got other guys like K-Rod on this team who don't deserve contracts. It seems to be one misstep after another with the management of this team that sits there and will eventually hinder it. But you have guys on this team. You have talent. You have good players. You have guys that would be cornerstones anywhere else in all of baseball. And here, they're just some guys, and what ends up happening is they have other guys that just weigh them down. It's like they do a lot of good things in games, but they always do a little bit more bad. And in this case, it's all on the bullpen. And you're right, what's Brad going to do? Who's he going to go to? He's got to play the guys that he has, right? It's one of those things where you're dealt a certain amount of cards. You got to play the cards you got. And look, you sit there and you talk about a guy who doesn't like to sit there and switch things up and doesn't like to give guys 4-out saves. What's he do last night? Goes to Justin Wilson and tries to give him a 4-out save. What ends up happening? Mark Trumbo happened. I mean, at this point, do you still believe in Justin Wilson as your closer? Closers are going to blow games. I get it. But this is something that's had me concerned since he's moved into that spot. I don't necessarily believe he's going to be able to get the job done the entire season. This is his third, fourth, fifth game as a closer, and he's already blown one? That's kind of how K-Rod started this season, and I think he'll be better than K-Rod.
But you see, Justin Wilson has the stuff. It's just, I think, for him, learning the job and maybe Brett Ausmus made a misstep and thinking he could go out there and get a 4-out save. I think what Brett Ausmus needed to do and what he's got to stick to.
So he needed to do a 3-out save?
That's it. Just for the next 2 weeks is just go out there and be the closer and stop with extra stuff. He's not Andrew Miller.
But this is hindsight. Like, this is what you're doing is you're looking back on what Ausmus did, and now you're going to critique him. If it works, he's great. And you're like, oh, yes, here's what we've been talking about. Why haven't you done more 4-out saves? Now it doesn't work. Now you're like, it needs to be a 3-out save. You can't have it both ways.
No, the way you look at it is, though, Justin Wilson is not a closer. So you're now teaching him to get into that mindset. And Mario Mpemba and Kirk Gibson talked about it, is that why can't you just, throw a guy that's doing well in the 7th inning and make him the closer? Because getting the last 3 outs is a whole different animal mentally.
There's a lot more pressure on it.
It's a lot more pressure. And so Justin Wilson was thrown into that job because he's got good stuff. And so what I'm thinking is, in hindsight, you would say, you know what? You got to ease him into the job. And what that means is no 4-out saves, no 2-inning, performances as the closer. Your job is you'll be utilized just in the 9th inning to get 3 outs. Do that, rack up 8, 9, 10, 11 saves. Now you have confidence. Now we'll maybe extend you where we might use you like Andrew Miller, where you're so dominant we can bring you in the 7th and maybe make you the guy the 7th, 8th, 9th for a couple performances. But for a guy that's being eased into the position, maybe that's a new way of looking at it for the Tigers, because, I understand any scenario in which a closer blows a save is one where it's going to be critiqued, but we're just trying to figure out, can Justin Wilson do the job? He's got the stuff, but now the issue is he got the mindset to be the closer? And if you can't get saves, 10, 12, 13, 14 in a row and be the guy that we can count on, then it's going to be an issue. I honestly believe that Justin Wilson can be the guy and he will be successful. And so the way I'm looking at it is, let's just maybe ease him into the job instead of maybe trying some, hokey things and getting him into a 4-out save.
See, I just don't believe that over the course of the long haul. I just don't think he's going to be the fit there.
Okay.
I like Alex Wilson in the 7th. I like Justin Wilson in the 8th. And I think you just come back with an actual closer. You're going to have to go hit the trade market. Why Anibal Sanchez is still on this roster, I don't understand it. Why K-Rod is still allowed to go out there and lose you games, I don't understand it.
Are you hearing the reports, though, that
these are two monster issues for this team?
Now we've kicked it up from Brad Ausmus to Al Avila, and now some reports are coming out that Chris Ilitch doesn't want to cut the checks. That Al Avila, if it was up to him to just sign away money, he would cut all these people. But you also have to remember that there's a boss that says, hey, I don't feel like writing a check for $21 million to one guy and then another $6 million to another guy. So that would, in essence, end up being $45 million paid out to players that you booted off the team. That is really tough for anybody to swallow.
I'm glad you brought this up. This brings me to where I wanted to go. We have discussed on other shows, usually when baseball season is getting underway, we usually have talked about Mr. I in the way that he has handled things with Dave Dombrowski, where he sets an initial limit for Dave Dombrowski, and then he's not happy with the way the team is filled out, and there's usually one high-priced free agent still out there, and Mike Ilitch is like, go get that guy for me. Totally throwing everything out of whack that Dave Dombrowski has basically done. He did it with Al Avila, all right? Now you've got Chris Ilitch, who appears to be a penny pincher. He doesn't want to spend money on things. He just kind of wants this team to just kind of float along here, and if you're going to be good, you're going to be good. If you're going to be bad, you're going to be bad. At this point right now, I think the major culprit for this team being in the position that it's in all falls at the feet of ownership. It's not management. It's not Brad Ausmus. Brad Ausmus, I think, has done a very good job this year. I think he looks much more comfortable in his role. I think he has a much better grasp of this team, and I think he has put players in positions to help this team win. I don't think he's necessarily costing you games like he was last season or the season before. But with ownership basically saying, we're not getting rid of these guys, you have to play them. He's got to play these guys. You can't just sit there and keep them on ice for 10, 12 games straight. He did it with Anibal. And then Anibal comes out, and what's he do? Gives up 3 home runs. He kept K-Rod on the bench for almost 5 games. Brings him in, and what's he do? Blows a game. So what are you going to do? You got to play these guys at certain points. You have to. This all falls on ownership. It's all on ownership for sitting there and giving mixed messages to Al Avila, who I don't think is a very good general manager. I think he's okay. I don't think he's very good at all. I think he is part of the problem. And this all ends up now falling down on Brad Ausmus, who at some point I feel is going to have just a conniption. He's probably going to go off on Jeff Rieger, friend of the podcast, and just be like, Jeff, what the hell do you want me to do? I have to play these guys. I have to. If you want answers, you know what? You know who you need to go see? You need to go see Chris Ilitch. That's who you need to go see. Or you need to go see Al Avila and see what him and Chris are talking about.
No.
I don't know what the hell you want me to do. Yes, that's how it works. Honestly, that's where I'm at with this team right now. Because there's no reason that Anibal Sanchez should be allowed to sit there and pitch another game. There's no reason that K-Rod should be allowed to pitch another game. You signed a Jordan Zimmerman who had numbers that were decreasing when he was in the National League. Now you bring him over to the American League, and instantly that ERA goes up by at least a run. And he's not shown the ability to bounce back from his Tommy John surgery. And you lace him with a monster contract, I believe it was $110 million. You have a very special player like like JD Martinez, and this guy has basically hit a home run every game he's played in since he's come back off the DL, and he sat there, hit you a grand slam the other night, hit 2 home runs 2 games ago. You got a guy who can sit there and just mash the ball. He could basically be your future Miguel Cabrera. When Miguel Cabrera starts to wane, Victor can or JD can pick the torch up and carry it. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to say goodbye to him because he wants too much money. There are rumblings that the Tigers offered him a contract last season and he rebuffed it. He said, no, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to test the market because they're not going to be able to come to the table with more money for him because they're pinching pennies right now. Easy for me to say. And it's all because you have bad contracts on this team. I just named 3 bad contracts. You know, and I haven't even got started on Victor Martinez, who, according to Brad Ausmus, is the best option at the cleanup spot. Wrong. Let me tell you why that's wrong. You got a guy like JD Martinez who's coming in, and the guy's sitting there belting home runs left and right. Victor Martinez should be somewhere down the lineup. He should be after Upton. I don't care if you sit there, you bat him 6th, you bat him 7th. There's no reason right now Victor Martinez should be your cleanup. There's absolutely zero. A guy like JD Martinez, whose bat is white hot, needs to be batting behind Miguel Cabrera. That's how this needs to work. And that right there, that might fall on Brad Ausmus. Whether Brad Ausmus doesn't have the autonomy to sit there and pull a guy like Victor Martinez out of that role and say, hey, look, you need to go down in the lineup. You're not necessarily helping the team. And I know he had a home run the other night, but he hasn't hit the ball well enough. And the guy can't get around the bases. And essentially, if he's not hitting the ball out of the park, he's an automatic freaking out. You don't need that. You need a guy to sit there and clean up what's on the base path, and you need a guy to sit there and hit the ball out of the park, and that's JD Martinez right now.
You're absolutely right. It does look like ownership is not really helping the situation and the cause for the Detroit Tigers. But a couple things, though, that you do got to look at, and you say, when I look at Brad Ausmus, I say to myself, and after a game like Tuesday, I just say to myself, he just doesn't have it. Something about the way he manages, something about his career path, something about the job that he's doing. We're not saying he's doing a bad job, but I just look at a situation where he makes decisions and they sometimes just don't turn out the way that it needs to. And you got this ball club right now that's scuffling. They got 18 wins, 19 losses, and you say to yourself, could this team be a little bit better? Maybe even 4 to 5 games better with a different manager? I would say yeah. And it's not an indictment on Brad Ausmus. It's just that something about him and something about the way he conducts himself and the way that he talks to people is not the way that is appealing to me. And you said it yourself in a perfect example of how he addressed Jeff Rieger. All he had to say was, he didn't have to call out Jeff Rieger and say, look, you scapegoat people, you always do that. All he had to say was, I'm trying to put people in opportunities to succeed, and more oftentimes than not, we're having challenges. We have to look internally to do a much better job. And you keep it moving. You don't have to call him out because these are questions that people want to know. They want to know, why are you having Sanchez? Why are you thinking about using K-Rod in any situation ever? And you just got to say, look, they're on the roster. I'm trying to get as much value out of them as possible. He should even take it on himself and say, I got to find better ways of utilizing these guys to have success. But to be all grouchy and to be that way after a loss, and at the same time, the way his decisions turn out, I just feel like he's just around a 500 manager. That's what we got. It's nothing special. And then you juxtapose that with, Joe Madden, who's won 1,000 games, chilling, drinking wine after games. That's awesome. He wins 1,000 games, sitting at the podium, has a glass of wine and sipping it like an OG. And we got Brad Ausmus, and you just you can't help but feeling like we got a Walmart manager. It's just the way it is. We got a Walmart manager in a Costco world, and that's just not the way I want to, proceed. I'm thinking that if it does bottom out and they do sell, or they use JD Martinez as trade bait, the first thing you got to keep hoping as Tigers fans is not open up the checkbook, which I saw all over Twitter. No, this is not the time. It's bad timing. If they did it, would I be mad? No. But I would understand if they opened up the checkbook and said, here, you can have $30 million a year. But unfortunately, that's not where the organization is. It's bad timing. Unfortunately, we needed JD Martinez back in 2012 to be mashing the baseball when we went through the offensive slumps in the World Series. You use JD Martinez as trade bait. Hey, you're a World Series contender. Give me your top prospect in your organization and maybe a couple guys that can be everyday guys in a year or two.
How does that sit in the locker room, though? So JD Martinez appears to be a locker room favorite, right? And JD Martinez seems to be a catalyst on this ball club. He's one of your best hitters. He's a guy who can sit there and mash the baseball. He's not necessarily a huge liability in the field. I think his defense could be better, but you're going to trade away this guy. How does this sit in the ball club now?
Here's why it doesn't matter. Because the guys that are going to be pissed, Miguel, Victor, Ian, in 3 years aren't going to be on this team. So it doesn't matter to me. They can be all upset. You're going to be 18 and 19. You're going to be, by the time the All-Star break hits, you're going to be, 41 and 41? So that's where it's going to be. So at that time, you openly announce, and this is why in the state of Detroit sports, we are where we are, is that I'm tired of being, right in the middle, where we have talent and at the same time, not really having trajectory towards a World Series. This team with this bullpen is nowhere near World Series caliber. When you ask that question, the next logical thing is, okay, we're not World Series caliber. Who are we going to trade off? And that's just the way it is. I'm not into this whole, skating around 500s, waiting and seeing. The tough decisions are coming. And I do think they are going to look at, okay, JD is a trade commodity. They can't look at him and say, oh my gosh, we're going to invest $30 million a year in this guy. I don't see them doing it. It could be the wrong decision.
I don't think they could afford $30 million.
I don't think they can even afford to do it. So if that's the case, then you're absolutely right that ownership is no longer in that mindset of like championship. They're maybe in the mindset of keeping business afloat.
Can I make a prediction here on what we're going to see out of your Detroit Tigers and out of your Detroit Red Wings underneath the ownership of Chris Ilitch?
Sell the Tigers for $1 billion.
It's going to be dark days.
Okay.
Chris Ilitch doesn't strike me as the same guy that Mike Ilitch was. Chris Ilitch strikes me as more
hitting the books.
Yeah, he's more of a business guy. He's more about what's my bottom line? Am I still putting butts in seats? And if I am, how can I do it at the cheapest possible margin? And whereas Mike Ilitch was all about winning. Mike Ilitch was a former minor league baseball player who was competitive. He wanted to sit there. He wanted to win. He was driven to win. Chris Ilitch doesn't strike me as the same guy. Chris Ilitch strikes me as a kind of guy who is all about it's got to make dollars over cents, and if I'm not seeing enough dollars, well then I'm gonna sit there, I'm gonna trade stuff off, and we're gonna do everything on the cheap, and until my bottom line is where I want my bottom line. And look, for years the Tigers have basically sat there and paid out of pocket for their franchise, whether it be going out and signing guys to huge contracts like Miguel Cabrera, or going out bringing in Victor Martinez, or going out and giving a bum like Jordan Zimmerman a ton of money just because, right? For years they've done this. And in the end, their books have always come up in the red. Chris Ilitch wants those books all in the black. As far as the Red Wings go, you seen it last year. It was the prime time to sit there and make some moves, whether it be just trading some pieces away or whether it be sitting there trying to get something in here. Chris Ilitch did nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I think you kind of seen that with Ken Holland, who was a little bit frustrated every time he went to the media and he talked with the media. Essentially, he said as much without saying as much. So just be prepared, Red Wing fans and Tiger fans and Detroit sports fans in general. Two of the organizations that have basically been the pride of this city, I see nothing but dark days ahead. Get ready for the Dead Wings, man.
Ooh, you believe so?
It's the way it's looking right now. Honestly, seriously, the Red Wings have sat there and they have drafted in such a low spot for so long. And even this year, right? This was the prime opportunity for them to sit there and get up in the draft and be able to get a marquee player. And this draft isn't necessarily great for marquee guys who are going to come in and step in and make an immediate difference. And still, they're drafting somewhere in the middle third. And this team doesn't look like it's going to be a player to sign high-priced free agents that are out there. It looks like they want to sit there and they want to try to bring guys up from their minor league system. And those guys never get to play because you've got too many veterans that are clogging things up that have stupid contracts up here. So I just don't see this happening. I see this team for the Red Wings basically being, I don't know, what the Oilers were years ago, except now with the luxury of getting number 1 draft picks left and right every other season. It's just going to be bad. And same thing with the Tigers. I see the Tigers doing something similar where they want to sit there, they want to bring everything up through their minor league system and try to build that way. Well, you know what? You've got nothing in your minor league system. You sat there and you went about doing things a totally different way for way too long, that now when you're sitting here trying to reevaluate and restructure everything, you don't have the necessary commodities in your pipeline to be able to sit there and ease into that transition. So it's going to be rough. It's going to be bumpy. And I don't know if the Tigers have the scouts where I actually believe in what these scouts say, where I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good player right there. Let's pick him up. No, I just don't believe in those guys, because what have they given us? You got to remember, Jacob Turner was supposed to be a can't miss stud prospect that this organization had. They sat there, they were able to trade him away and get something back in return. And you know what Jacob Turner's doing now? Exactly, absolutely nothing. And there's a million of these guys. A million of them that you could just sit there and go through. And that's because the scouting in this organization is not very good.
Dark days. And I think that's kind of where a lot of people are. They have hope that the Tigers and Red Wings and other organizations are going to do some things, but it's just going to be imperative that everyone has a little bit of patience, and that you hope with higher draft picks that you can go out there and actually get talent to take us to the next level. All right, let's take our first time out, come back. We're going to play a round of Jock Jams. I got 3 great questions lined up for the Jock, and I know he's always ready to deliver. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc here. I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a way to take our recorded audio and put it up to the internet. And luckily for us, we found Podomatic. That's been our host site since September of 2013. And for each episode that we've recorded, we've uploaded it to Podomatic.com. If you're looking to start a brand new podcast and you're out there, you're listening, you're like, oh, I can do better than those guys. I can do a podcast. Go out there, record your audio, do a show. If you're looking for a host site, don't use sites like SoundCloud, other sites that may have issues down the line. Use a site that's been around since 2005. And that's the site we've exclusively used here on the network. I strongly advise, if you want to do a great podcast and have links that anybody can find and have your podcast up to iTunes and anywhere podcasts are available, use one host site, Podomatic.com. Lots of news, cuz, in the world of sports. My goodness. If you just turn on ESPN, you turn on any of the outlets that you find, oh my goodness, there's so much going on locally and nationally, and I'm very curious to pick your brain in what we call Jock Jams. All right, cuz, a lot of things are leaked. A lot of companies try to keep things secret, whether it be new logos, new jerseys, things like that. But the Pistons, it was so weird. A tweet just kind of happened to be, revealed last week on Twitter. And many people were like, wait, is that the new Pistons logo? And many people were like, I think it is. And people were speculating, going, I'm not really impressed. It looks okay. It looks like the old Bad Boys version. And then the Pistons had the logo design reveal on Tuesday at Campus Martius. And people looked at it and they were like, The response on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, the best way I would describe it is mixed reviews at best. What are your takes and what are your thoughts on the newly designed Pistons logo?
Yeah, it's kind of whatever. I mean, look, here's the thing. You're going to sit there and you're going to launch something that's supposed to be brand new, supposed to entice your fan base, supposed to get people that you want to come see your games energized and ready to go for your upcoming season, especially in your new digs, and you release that. And honestly, this looks like they had somebody from the old school and somebody from the new school, and they were like, oh, let's get together and let's mash ideas together. And what they ended up doing was they sat there and they argued for probably 48 hours about the same exact thing. And finally they said, you know what? We'll do a little bit of what you want. We'll do a little bit of what I want, and we'll just put it all together, and we'll see what the hell happens. And that's what they came up with.
You know what I thought happened? I thought potentially that, you know what? Someone in graphic design got a boatload of money, and they were like, you know what? I can drag this out for 3 to 4 weeks. I can kick my feet up. All I got to do is take, an older version and just kind of pinch the Detroit Pistons together. Voila, it's done. I don't think a lot of effort was put into this at all.
None whatsoever, dude.
It doesn't make you want to go buy any Pistons gear.
No, and here's the thing. I don't really own any Pistons gear. I'll be honest with you. I've got I think two jerseys, maybe 3 from back in the day when back from like the 2004 team, and I think I have like 2 hats. And you know how often I wear any of those things? Never, ever. It's what it is, man. I was just really disappointed. This was the prime opportunity to sit there and launch something new, launch something fresh. And honestly, I didn't really have a problem with the old logo. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. But this was your turn to sit there and say, "Hey guys, we're moving to a new spot. This is going to be a brand new spin on a team that's just kind of been kind of old and crusty. So let's just launch something that's going to get everybody energized and reps to go." And you release that. Wah wah wah. It's just kind of what it was, man. I was like, when I was looking at it, I was just like, they didn't do anything. It looks like every other logo that they've ever had. And it's because they basically merged 2 logos together. It wasn't good. It was a bad look.
Tuesday night, I was excited, obviously, to watch the Tigers game. And then at 8:30, there was the NBA draft lottery. Now, with the Pistons, everybody and their mama, when they were projecting this year's draft lottery, had the Pistons going at 12. So there wasn't really that much intrigue because, the Pistons never get lucky in the draft lottery to go from, the potential 12th pick all the way up to number 1.
And when you do, you take Darko. So,
yes. When you have your opportunity to have good luck, you draft Darko Milicic, like you said. But the story in the NBA draft lottery on Tuesday was revealed when you got down to the top 3. And then it was revealed. The Celtics get the number 1 pick. The Lakers get the 2nd overall pick. With the Pistons, they get 12th. Again, why play even well the last 20 games? You needed to increase your odds, and that's what happened with the Pistons. You have to tank. 2017 has to be the year of tanking for the Pistons. It has to be. In essence, if you don't tank, you're going to be stuck in the middle forever. But in terms of the top of the draft lottery, the real winners, Boston and the Los Angeles Lakers. They're right in the driver's seat, and a team that everyone's going to be looking to on draft night when it comes around in June is going to be the Los Angeles Lakers. What are they going to do if Lonzo Ball is there at number 2? Do you think if he's there, if he's not selected number 1, because many people don't think that he is number 1 caliber talent, does he go number 2 to the Lakers and fulfill LeVar's prophecy?
I think that is probably the most realistic expectation, especially if you're a Laker fan. If you're a Laker fan, you want this to happen. Lonzo Ball does look like a very special player. I think his dad's a total headache, and I can't stand hearing from him, but that's another case for a different day. But I think if the Lakers are sitting there at number 2 and Lonzo Ball falls in their lap, they have to take him. He appears to be a player that can kind of change the way the game is played. Look at what Steph Curry does in Golden State. All right, it's a similar type of player. It's a guy who can pass the ball, he can dribble, he can make his own shot, he can sit there and hit 3-pointers, he can cut to the lane, and he can score baskets in close. Lonzo Ball possesses all of these qualities to be able to do what needs to be done with a NBA point guard, and I think he's a game-changing type point guard. That being said, I don't know how well everything that surrounds Lonzo Ball is going to be perceived. There are already reports coming out that former NBA players say that everything that goes on with his dad isn't going to fly in the NBA. And if Lonzo's going to sit there and have a real good career and he's going to sit there and be basically accepted in by his teammates, he's going to have to sit there and kind of distance himself from his father because his father just makes outrageous claims and says all kinds of ridiculousness all the time. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I do believe that if Lonzo Ball is sitting there at number 2, the prophecy will come true.
So obviously everyone's looking at Lonzo Ball going number 2. But if you're the Pistons, do you get aggressive in this year's draft if you look at the talent in the top 5? Do you say to yourself, okay, LA, ring the telephone, Stan Van talks to Magic. Hey, Magic, what's going on? Any room for me in your business empires? No, okay, fine, I'll stick here with the Pistons. Would you then offer the Lakers Tobias Harris, maybe Reggie Jackson, the number 12 pick in the draft, and maybe a first round next year for a player that could be in the top 5 for the number 2 pick? Do you reset the organization and maybe take a forward Jason Tatum? Do you take, a Josh Jackson freshman out of Kansas? Do you go up and maybe take a De'Aaron Fox who kind of did some damage in the tournament? Is there anybody, or would you be willing to put together a package and call the Lakers and say, we want that pick number 2?
I would put together a package, and it would include Reggie Jackson. I don't know if it would include Tobias Harris. Out of everything that they've got going on with the Pistons, I think I like Tobias Harris probably the most, and he feels like a piece that I could kind of build around. But it would include Reggie Jackson. And
that seems like a dump in. That's the guy that you just dump in there. So who would be the name guy that you throw in there? Would it be Andre?
Oh, if I could get rid of Andre, I'd get rid of Andre in a heartbeat. Yeah, I mean, if I can give you Reggie and I can give you Andre, be gone. I mean, I don't know. What else? If they worked out like a sign and trade with KCP, I'll give you Reggie and I'll give you Andre. I don't know. I don't think the salaries would work out, but whatever. And I'd give you the 12th overall pick, and I'd give you considerations for
a second round next year.
Yes, I would trade all that, and I would for their second overall pick for Lonzo Ball. Essentially,
you want Lonzo Ball?
I would want Lonzo Ball.
No, I
because
wouldn't.
I feel like Lonzo Ball can sit there and he can do a lot of different things.
You see him as a franchise guy, huh?
I don't. I see his skill set as being a franchise guy. The real question is, how much influence does his dad have in his life? Because if he's going to sit there and he's going to buy all the hype that his dad pumps into his face, then I don't know if I can deal with that. But again, the guy can pass with some of the best. The guy can shoot. He's got range. He's even got like a mid-range jumper that he can hit. The guy can cut to the basket. He rebounds. He does everything that you need and that you want a player to do. And he's essentially, you know what he reminds me of? He reminds me a little bit of Magic. Remember how Magic could play every position on the court? Lonzo reminds me a little bit of that. I don't think he can play center, but I could see the guy sitting there playing the 4. I could see him playing the 3. You know he can play the 2, and you know he's a good point guard. So I see him being a versatile player that can come in, he can give you multiple fronts, and I think he's talented enough and he's skilled enough to where you can build around him, and he's going to help your franchise long term. But yeah, I would give up all that to get that kid. I would have to put a muzzle on his father. Just like sit there, shut up.
All right, switching gears and talking about hockey. Great NHL conference finals. Games that are exciting, fun to watch. A little bit of controversy here and there in terms of, goals getting waved off and things like that in the Nashville games. The NHL conference finals are going to be awesome. If you're not a hockey fan, you definitely want to tune in to watch the final 4 teams because it's a good brand of hockey right now. And 4 squads where you could realistically look at any one of them winning the Stanley Cup. But with the finals underway, who do you want to play in the NHL finals and why?
I want the Nashville Predators to win. I want them to beat the Anaheim Mighty Ducks or the Anaheim Ducks. I like Corey Perry. Ryan Getzlaf's cool too. I just don't care for the Ducks. I think the Nashville Predators are a great story. I love PK Subban, Pernell Carl. That's my boy. I think they're an outstanding story. They're super interesting. This is basically an expansion franchise that has basically ran the gamut of not being able to make the playoffs to making the playoffs, then not making the playoffs, and now look at what they're doing. They had a huge trade last year where they basically traded away their captain for PK Subban with the Montreal Canadiens. So I think they're an interesting story. And then in the other conference, I can't stand Pittsburgh. As great of a player as Sidney Crosby is, and I will say he is the best player in the NHL, I can't stand Pittsburgh whatsoever. So it's got to be Ottawa. Plus, it'd be nice to see a Canadian team in the finals. So I think you have a Nashville-Ottawa final. I think that would be great. On top of that, there's a lot of interesting stories with Ottawa. You've got Craig Anderson, their goaltender, whose wife just went through cancer treatment. He missed large portions of the season because he was dealing with all that with his wife. You have a guy like Bobby Ryan, who was the 2nd overall draft pick behind, I believe it was Sidney Crosby. And he has sometimes at points struggled to find his way, and he's having a really nice playoffs right now. He had an awful regular season. I think he only had like 10 goals in 75 games. And for a guy who was drafted as highly as he was and who the organization put all these franchise expectations on, he really struggled at certain points in his career, especially this regular season. But in the playoffs, it's a totally different animal, totally different beast. On top of it, I like the way Ottawa plays. I think they're fun to watch. Same thing with Nashville. I think they're fun to watch. They do a lot of good things, and I think it'd be an entertaining series. Those are the 2 teams I want to win it all.
Very good round of Jock Jams, sir. Very much appreciated. Good insights. And I'm telling you, if you're a fan of the NBA or NHL and you're starting to compare which series are better and which league is performing much better, the NBA has took a dump all over the playoffs in terms of blowouts, uninteresting storylines. It's just really, in essence, waiting for the top two teams to play each other. And many people are already thinking the conference finals are going to be sweeps on both sides. And you could have two teams in the Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers showing up undefeated.
Just Cleveland Steamers all over your chest.
No doubt about it. You ready for one quick yes or no bonus question?
Sure.
Zaza Pachulia, is he a dirty player? Did he mean to slew foot Kawhi Leonard? And did he, in essence, kill the San Antonio Spurs' hopes and dreams? It doesn't look like it to me, but do you think Zaza is a dirty player?
No.
No, I don't think so either.
No, I just...
Super lucky he planted his foot where he did at that time.
It was one of those things where he went to go close him out, and Kawhi came down on him funny. And Kawhi's had issues with that ankle going back to the last series, so no.
But do you find it interesting, though, that guys like Jalen Rose come out and say, yeah, of course, I stuck my foot out there playing with Kobe Bryant all the time. I tried my best after the fact.
No. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
It's all ball and game. It's all the game.
There are little battles and little wars within the bigger war, which is the basketball game or the football game or the hockey game, whatever it is. There's always these little battles that go on, and things happen like that. You know, I mean, it's just what it is. So no, it doesn't surprise me at all.
All right,
I find it to be interesting. Actually, I love it.
Our final timeout's ahead. Stay with us. We'll be back with the Doc and Jock Wrestling Report, and we'll wrap this bad boy up. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I want to tell you about Detroit Sports, official outfitter, and the official outfitter of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, and that's Fanatic U. They've been a longtime sponsor of ours since the early inception of this project, and we ask that you support those that support us. FanaticU.com has several locations all across Metro Detroit, and if you're a fan of the Pistons, Wings, Lions, Tigers, no better outfitter than FanaticU.com. They got great deals on all Detroit sports gear, memorabilia. They got signings from time to time. So if you're looking for great gear to go out to Comerica Park or looking for gear to suit up when you go out to the new Little Caesars Arena, you got to check out one place. And that's Detroit Sports, official outfitter, FanaticU.com. Yes, sir, Adam. Great stuff. Finn Balor making a great comeback, doing his thing. Just one of the all-time great wrestlers, I think, of this generation, if they allow him to be that. And this is the Doc and Jock Wrestling Report. I do want to talk about something, though, with Finn Balor. If you notice, I don't know if you're paying attention, but I don't like with him the whole David versus Goliath mentality. Each and every broadcast now in the last 4 weeks, the announcers, I don't know if you've caught it, have called him undersized and kind of called him like Peeny Weeny, Tiny Tim. And I'm like, no, this is Finn Balor. This is the guy for the better part of 2 years has come out there and carried your company. Why are you shortchanging him? This is a guy that can go up against a Roman Reigns. If you remember his first match, he came on Raw and defeated Roman Reigns and looks good. You don't want to go down that road with Finn Balor. This is a superstar. This is the AJ Styles caliber guy. You don't want to go up there and call him a midget and call him puny. No, don't do that to a Finn Balor. This is a guy that fought hard after an injury to come back. And even if he's just a guy that you use as an attraction just to have his entrance, it's awesome. It's something where you listen to his music and you're like, that's Finn Balor. I want to know what's going down.
The only way this works out, because I think it's horrible as well. I think you do a lot of disservice to.
He's not
to
Tiny
guy.
Tim.
I mean, the guy's in phenomenal shape. Yeah, he's not 7 foot tall and he doesn't weigh 240 pounds, but I think you do the guy a huge disservice because he's super agile. He does a really good job in the ring. And on top of that, he cuts a pretty decent promo for the most part. I think the only way this works out, you sitting there selling his height and selling his sleight of build, is if he is able to win the Fatal 5-Way match at Extreme Rules and he goes on to beat Brock Lesnar. If Brock Lesnar beats him, then everything you basically have said was true. And you basically have cut the legs out from underneath this guy. So why are fans going to get behind him? For the rest of his career, he'll be known as being too small. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't understand why they're starting to build it this way. It doesn't. There has to be a payoff if they're going to do this. Otherwise, what this leads me to believe is that this is really how Vince feels about him. He's too small. He's too slight a build. He's probably injury prone because you remember he sat there. He had tore his labrum in his shoulder. Had to have surgery after he won the Universal Galactic Championship, and then he came back and Jinder basically hit him with a stiff elbow in the head and gave him a concussion. So unfortunately, if this is how Vince really feels about him, he's destined to basically be an upper mid card guy for the rest of his career. And what's that say? You know, I mean, honestly, the guy is talented, and like you said, his ring entrance, it's so over. And then when he wears the demon outfit, that is probably one of the most gripping things in wrestling right now. So it would just be a huge disservice to a talent like him, and it just makes me scratch my head. Like, what the heck are you doing? Why are we doing it this way?
So what'd you think about Raw overall Monday night? I know you haven't been happy in the better part of the last 3 weeks with the product. This is a show that's going to build up to the next pay-per-view.
It was okay.
Start the build up.
Yeah, it was an all right show. I wasn't as upset with this week's program as I was with the previous 2 and 3 weeks program. This one was, I think, a little bit better. Again, it just kind of feels like we're kind of stuck in this little circle, this slow build to get us to where we got to go. So it just feels like there's not a whole lot of traction, not a whole lot of big storylines going on right now. It's just little things. And all these little things, I'm assuming will culminate into something bigger and better later on. I really feel like WWE at this point is scrambling because of the Braun Strowman injury. It sounds like everything kind of had to be flipped around last minute. And that's not really unusual in the WWE because Vince McMahon changes his mind at the drop of a hat all the time. So it struck me as a okay product this week. Wasn't as bad as last week or the week before that. Still needs some work to be done. It wasn't like, I don't find myself getting excited like I was when we were building up to WrestleMania, we're building up to the Royal Rumble. Every week it was like I had to watch. I had to sit there and see what the heck was going on. I don't necessarily get that feeling right now. So it's getting a little bit better. Like I said, I feel like we're kind of in this lull where we're just kind of building to the next story arc, and hopefully we get there sooner than later because I am losing interest and it is waning on my patience. But I guess we'll see. I'm really interested in this Fatal 5-Way match at Extreme Rules. I'm not sure who you think is going to win, but we just talked about a guy, Finn Balor, who I think has a great shot to win the whole damn thing.
The next guy that has to be up, as I think that many people are already thinking it's going to be Finn Balor versus Brock Lesnar. My thinking would be go outside the box and make it Bray Wyatt. That's the guy that's over. That's the guy people want to see. That's the guy that can carry the company. I mean, oh my gosh, when you see these promos, and we'll talk about some of the weak promos that I heard this week on SmackDown, my goodness, Bray Wyatt, when he just starts talking, he could be talking about lint on the ground in front of him, and he'll make it interesting. And you're like, wow, what's this guy doing? What's this guy talking about? You know there is no chance there's nobody writing a script for him. He's just like, I'm going to tell you this, and if you want to fine-tune it, add a word here, add a word there, fine. But more of the guys need to be like Bray Wyatt. It's not scripted. There is no way Bray Wyatt is scripted, and that's why it's so interesting and so unique. And other guys, it just sounds like, why did you waste this opportunity to talk for 2 minutes? So if you want to create buzz and go outside the box, the winner should be Bray Wyatt.
You know what I like about Bray Wyatt and his promos? Were you a huge fan of Jake the Snake Roberts when you were a kid?
I was.
Jake the Snake was one of my all-time favorites. If you ever noticed when Jake the Snake cut a promo, he would pull you in real close, and he would talk real low like this, and it would almost sound methodical and devious and demented. And you'll notice Bray Wyatt does that. He pulls you in real close, gets real low, talks real kind of in a hushed tone, and then he'll sit there and he'll exaggerate something. So it pulls your attention and kind of shocks you a little bit, and then he pulls you back in and he talks real low again. And he does a real good job of doing that in selling everything. You're right. It comes off a little bit creepy, comes off a little bit eerie, but he doesn't sit there and he doesn't have to go out there and he doesn't have to be real loud, doesn't have to be real boisterous. He keeps it in a low, hushed tone to force you to pay attention. A lot better than what Roman Reigns does when he goes out there and he's like, this is my yard. Nobody gives a shit. Honestly, I'm going to tell you, nobody cares that it's your yard. Shut up. I think Seth Rollins has a shot at winning this Fatal 5-Way as well. That's an interesting storyline there because he can challenge Brock Lesnar. Also, Samoa Joe. Would it be cool or not to see Samoa Joe versus Brock Lesnar? I mean, you would have...
That'd be a big step up.
That would be. You would have a guy who is basically a machine in Samoa Joe. And every time Samoa Joe comes out there and cuts a promo, it's like it's in your face. It's like you're getting punched nonstop in the face. It's basically Samoa Joe, this guy who's super I want to say powerful, and like I said, just beating down your door versus the Beast, Brock Lesnar.
Best part of Raw for me was the angle now that was created with Goldust destroying R-Truth.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
That was
now
good.
you got a heel. A little bit going back to the throwback days of Goldust. I thought that was cool. You knew it was probably going to happen. Maybe some will say it was too soon, but I thought it was great. It was an excellent way to set off that feud. Many people will view it as a B or C feud, but I'm down to watch it, no doubt about it.
Can we get Marlena back? I used to love when she would come out with him.
And then the worst part of Raw was you have a talent, a superstar woman's talent in Sasha Banks, and you go out there and you give her like 5 minutes to fight Alicia Fox. You cannot go back to the throwback days of the women's division and allow this talent, Sasha Banks, to go out there and fight these sloppy matches. It's not her fault, but the matches are going to come off sloppy because they have to rush through it. They're just like, gotta get my move, your move. And, obviously they're building these things with Alicia Fox letting her get a victory on Raw, but it's just a disservice for Sasha Banks to utilize her in that way. And I came off watching that match going, I say to myself, why on earth did you even allow the entire Titus O'Neil segment to even be written? You could have just gave that extra 5 minutes to Sasha Banks, because that was stupid.
Well,
Titus O'Neil wrestling in a suit is stupid.
You got your Apollo Crews heel turn is what you got out of it. So now
already know.
Apollo Crews and Titus O'Neil are now going to be a tag team. And Apollo Crews will do most of the wrestling. Titus O'Neil will do most of the talking.
No, they want to make Titus a manager. I'm not thinking he wants to be a real full-time wrestler.
I don't know. But here's the deal. So now they're going to feud with Enzo and Cass for a little bit. And look, you got a guy who can talk a whole bunch with Titus O'Neil, just like Enzo. And then you got a guy who can do a whole lot of wrestling, just like Big Cass and Apollo Crews. So that's what that whole thing was. And you're right. That was a squash match too. That was like 2 minutes long, and it was Titus O'Neil beating the crap out of Cass for 1:50, and then Cass sits there, gives him the big boot, and then 1, 2, 3, it's all over.
That should have been a 4-minute decision. You look at the rundown, you go cut Titus, add it to Sasha, boom, we got a show.
Right,
better show.
I agree with you.
How'd you think about SmackDown?
SmackDown was okay. It was pretty good, I guess. You sat there, you started off with Kevin Owens. This whole Kevin Owens AJ Styles things kind of has me gripped a little bit. I want to see what's going to happen here. Kevin Owens was going to have Jinder Mahal come out, and I want to talk about Jinder for a second. I like what they're doing with Jinder. I think it's interesting. I like the fact that this guy, who would just basically was the put-over machine for everybody else, now is in line to sit there and win the championship, and I hope he beats Randy Orton for it, because I can't see Randy Orton being the champion anymore. But high-definition TVs do bad things for guys who are on steroids. And Jinder Mahal is on steroids. If you look at all of his back acne, it's disgusting. He has acne coming all the way down to his elbow. He's on so many roids. It's ridiculous. And I'm going to call it right now. There's some YouTube video that I got to watch where it talks about how he's gotten his physique in the condition that it's in and how he does his diet. And there's no way in hell, dude. That guy is doing a ton of anabolic stuff.
Now with him, that's the guy that wins the worst promo of the week. You got 2-3 minutes to talk to the WWE Universe, and you spit out lines from like old proverbs. I'm like, no, Jinder, that was not the lasting effect I wanted you to do when you come out there and interrupt Kevin Owens and AJ Styles. I felt like you were given the prime moment, and if there was a time...
Oh, dude, you're in there with two of the biggest names and two of the biggest stars on this brand.
If there was a time where you take the script and just rip it up and just say your own stuff, just go out there and say something profound. Whatever he said, I just kept looking at him going, he is so overacting that it's now laughable. Yeah. I was laughing at his promo going, what is this? He was like, had his hand like pronounced like this, and I kind of got my arm way above my head and going, yeah, it's like the promo did nothing but make me laugh, and I go, no, this is an opportunity to state your case, throw away the script, say something profound, or don't say whatever Jinder Mahal said. It was a wasted opportunity. And if you're going to have Jinder Mahal beat AJ Styles, that's the way you do it. You have Kevin Owens interfere. You elevate that rivalry. But Jinder Mahal, if you look at it, he is getting a great push where 3 weeks ago he's losing to Mojo Rawley, and now he's beating AJ Styles. So this is a meteoric rise, but in terms of his promos, F.
Yeah,
F.
no,
that was a terrible promo.
I totally agree. Speaking of good promos, you seen what Randy Orton did on Twitter?
Ooh.
You want to talk about this?
To set the scene, that's pure ego. Him going out there and going like, yeah, man, I just toured Europe and got $5 million. And you're like, oh my gosh, dude. And then to go out there and just to crap on indie wrestlers and kind of talk about, that they do the same moves and they have to take risky bumps and stuff like that. It really did set ablaze the internet world and a lot of fans of indie. There's a lot of fans of indie wrestling, and they didn't take too kindly to that kind of talk. And especially, Randy did reply on Twitter. If you check out his Twitter page, he did reply to those that said, look, your reign is awful. But he's like, yeah, I'm a 13-time champ. Doesn't matter. He responded to some people that are like, your wrestling matches are boring and they're stiff. And he's like, hey, the check's clear and I'm having a run. So you.
Let me set the scene here. So Rip Rogers, who is a former journeyman wrestler, wrestled in the territories. He comes out, and this is basically after ROH's War of the Worlds took place this past weekend. Every indie match now: handshake, drawn out, move exchange, this is awesome chant, strike exchange, dive, no sell, indie strong style, dive, more strikes, no sell, dive, flippy floppy sequence, dive, hit everyone with each other's finisher, then Humpty Dumpty, we all fall down. Fight forever chant, rinse, repeat until every move is useless and means nothing. Dive, take unsafe shot that looks like shit and hurts them like hell, roll up finish, handshake, hug after match, everyone's hands raised. All these guys chant, go home, and type on social media thanking your opponent and company for matches and telling others they should book these guys. Dive. And then I got a reaction from TJP. The irony of a proud magician exposing bad magicians to non-magicians by explaining why magic is fake. I thought that was funny and interesting. At that point, Will Ospreay, who's a great indie wrestler, said, yeah, but I'm having fun and making money, so I'm happy. Dive. And then he sits there and he plugs a Dive t-shirt, which is great. Looks like something we would design. By the way, go check out our t-shirts at teesprings.com. Randy Orton puts ... dive after that. And then Bully Ray comes in. Now, mind you, Randy Orton and Bully Ray have heat from a match that took place with Bubba Ray and Devon years ago when they took on Randy Orton and Batista. In the match, everybody kind of got hurt and was left a little bit damaged. So what ends up happening is Bubba Ray sits there and sends out a picture of himself basically doing a dive, and he just kind of looks like a chubby guy falling off the top of the ring rope. So then Randy Orton responds, LOL, there's a difference between a young, hungry talent diving and an old, out-of-shape vet falling. And then it shows a chubby guy falling into an inflatable pool, which was kind of hilarious. And then Velvet Sky, who is Bubba Ray's girlfriend, replies, wow, what a dick thing to say. And Bubba Ray then responds to Randy Orton himself. He says, Dear Randy Orton, my tweet had zero to do with you. Looks like you were wrong again. You're still awesome. Thumbs up emoji. Falling is greater than House of Horrors. Basically calling out his match at the House of Horrors, which was atrocious. Then Randy Orton then has the most epic mic drop and response. Sorry to the indie marks, indie guys, and old-timers who do dives is in capital letters, that took offense. Just having a good time over a few drinks in Denmark, closing the SmackDown Live tour while beating Raw and making over $5 million in the last 11 shows. Now, I know to some that doesn't equate to a standing room only crowd of 150 people paying $8 at an armory somewhere, but in the big boy world, that's calling putting asses in seats. So enjoy your flips, dives, and 20 super kicks per match. To each their own. I will go dive back into my 13th title run and get ready to flip when my bank statement comes this month. ... Headlock. Mic drop. So yeah, Randy Orton basically just killed the indie scene. Young Bucks end up coming back in. They say apology accepted. And if you don't know who the Young Bucks are outstanding. You should check them out. But yeah, it's dude, that was probably his best thing he's done since he's had that damn title. And it all took place on Twitter. So this is what I have to say for Randy Orton going forward. Get drunk before you go on and before you cut promos and before you wrestle. Because if you were drinking and you sat there and you got a hold of Twitter, I loved every minute of it. It was actually good. You showed some heart, you showed some passion, you showed some class. Do it again. Do it in the ring. That was great. I loved it.
So you don't discount the fact that he's basically knocking down a hardworking group of people that aren't making it, that are living out their dream and trying to.
Oh, they're making it. A lot of these dudes on the indie scene, they're making it. I mean, they're not pulling down Randy Orton money, but they're doing a good job doing what they're doing. Look, if you look at what Cody Rhodes is doing on the indie scene, Cody Rhodes is probably one of the top paid guys on the indie scene right now. He's killing it with everything that he's doing. And look, there's money to be made, and you know what? I like a lot of the indie stuff. And I don't know if Ring of Honor, if you'd consider Ring of Honor indie or not. But for the sake of this argument, let's consider Ring of Honor indie wrestling. I think it's really good. I think a lot of these guys are really good. I think Will Ospreay's great. I think Marty Scurll, who's a new member of Bullet Club, I think Marty Scurll's exceptional. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there who are outstanding. Here's the thing with Bully Ray. Bully Ray and Randy Orton, like I said, they have beef from a match that took place years ago. And everybody ended up getting really hurt and banged up. Bully Ray sat there and talked about it on I believe it was a Fox radio station this past week. But Bully Ray, at some point, there's this long convoluted story that was going on a few months ago. Basically, Bully Ray and Devon were sitting there teaching at one of their classes. They sit there and they have a wrestling school. One of their students was sitting there and abusing Jade, who is a wrestler on TNA, a female wrestler on TNA. Bully Ray and Devon supposedly, again, this is all hearsay, sat there and went to Jade and basically told her not to say anything. Jade ended up having this whole stop domestic violence type program that kind of went on, and TNA really highlighted it. And I think it was on Oprah, and she talked about it on Oprah. And this is why Bully Ray and Devon got pushed out of WWE. WWE didn't want anything to do with any of this. So they basically sat there and tore up their contracts and said, you guys got to go. So there was some talk that they'll go lay low for a little bit, and at some point, WWE will bring Bully Ray back. Devon, I believe, still works for the company in a backstage role. Bully Ray ended up going to Ring of Honor because I guess he couldn't work things out with WWE, and so now he is working, if you want to say, on the indie scene. Look, Ring of Honor does really good stuff. Bully Ray, really good wrestler, and a lot of these guys on the indie scene, I think, do a really good job. Randy Orton, was it a little bit hoity-toity? Was he kind of thumbing his nose at that establishment? Absolutely he was. But again, this is a guy who was born in the industry, born into...
Didn't do NXT, didn't do any of that kind of stuff.
He basically got by off his father's coattails, and you know what? I think he's a better wrestler than his dad was. Mm-hmm. So, it's what it is. It just, look, his 13th championship run is absolute garbage. It just, he looks really disinterested. That's what it is. But Randy Orton is still, if you look at his history and his career, he's still a really good wrestler. And when he's engaged, he does a really good job. He's just not engaged. You like to see this carry over and a little bit more spit and fire in the ring, and that'd be kind of fun to see. Yeah, I want to see some damn passion from my wrestler. You know what I'm saying? Look, you can say all you want to say about John Cena, right? And how John Cena is this and John Cena is that. But you know what? When John Cena goes out there, John Cena cuts a great promo. John Cena's engaged. Even if it's an awful match and he's got to sit there and wrestle somebody who maybe is below him or whatever. John Cena's at least engaged in the damn match, and he's going to go out there and give it, I want to say, at least 95%. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that dude crapped his pants one time wrestling. Did you know that story? Yeah. He had the flu, and he sat there and pooped on himself in the middle of the ring. How awful would that be? He had diarrhea. It's not good. So, no, just be engaged, man. Randy Orton's not engaged, and that bothers me. Final topic, we'll get out of here on this. This Sunday, Backlash. 2 great matches that most people are looking forward to. The debut of Shinsuke Nakamura, going to take on Dolph Ziggler, and then you got Kevin Owens versus AJ Styles. 2 matches that many people are going to want to see. Which match steals the show? I'm definitely looking forward to Shinsuke. Just the entrance, what he can do. It's going to be the kickoff of what I believe is going to be the superstar of the year in WWE, or at least a candidate, Shinsuke Nakamura. I really don't think you can go wrong with either one of those matches. I think they're both going to be great. But based purely on the entrance, it's got to be Shinsuke. It's got to be Nakamura, because... Violent guy or no violent guy? Got to be a violent guy. Come on, dude. It's his first match. Like here's the thing, man. I come here all the time. I'm usually dragging butt. I was feeling super ill, like a little kid on a big wheel, and you sat there, you hit that opening cue, and we sat there, we opened this show up, and now what is it? An hour, 20 minutes later, hour and a half later, and we're still rocking and rolling. And that's all because I got juiced up off that entrance that we had. But I'm starting to think that I'm getting that same feeling, and I thought, well, I get that same feeling out of Finn Balor's entrance. That music is good. So you got to give credit to WWE music. With the top superstars, the ones they're bringing from NXT, the music is off the chain. It sets the scene. So you think the Shinsuke match is going to be off the chains and, I think so. Steal the show? Here's the thing. Dolph, I don't think gets enough credit. He's like elite enhancement talent. Status. Yeah, I think he does a really good job in the ring. I think he can perform. If you have a guy who can perform, he can perform with them, and it's outstanding. He, I think, does a very good job in the ring. So I think with Nakamura and him, I think it's going to be an exceptional match. That's not taking anything away from Kevin Owens or AJ Styles. I think both of those guys are going to have a phenomenal match as well. And talking about music, If you look at wrestlers like Sasha Banks, Nakamura, Bobby Roode, who else has another outstanding entrance? I get hyped for Becky Lynch's, but I have a huge crush on her, so whatever. I don't know, man. There are so many good wrestling theme songs just to kind of come out to. It's outstanding. There's a bunch. So yeah, you're right. Give props to the musician that puts it all together.
Hell, AJ Styles, Kevin Owens.
Oh, dude, yeah, AJ Styles and Kevin Owens. You're right. How do I forget those guys?
It's okay. No doubt about it. So I'm looking forward to this week, the pay-per-views. It's nice to have a couple every single month, and it'll give us a chance to review it. So yes, sir, it has been 90 minutes, and we got to shut it down, though. Great podcast, episode 197. Next week, we'll get a chance to preview your destination wedding. So you'll be here next week, and then the week after, 199 is the one where you will not be available.
I will not be available for 199.
So the date
do we know who's guest filling in for me?
I do not know yet. I haven't thought about it just yet. So to lock it down, today is the 17th. You'll be available. So you're leaving that Wednesday, the 31st?
I am leaving. Pull up the calendar here. I'm leaving next Thursday. So the podcast will drop the day that I fly out to Jamaica. So I'm leaving on the 25th.
Gotcha.
And then I will be back. I'll be back on the 2nd.
Gotcha.
So
all right, sir. Good stuff. You're going to have a good vacation, and it'll be fun to talk about it on next week's podcast. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Thank you for downloading and listening to podcast episode 197.
Go Tigers.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me.